In this video, we will be looking at the best agents for solo queue on the new map Lotus, where they could find value and how they are looking to be played in games. What's going on, guys? It's your host Sergeant Frost, and Riot's latest 3-site map Lotus just released, and it's already causing some buzz in the Valorant community. With each new map, the best agent picks are always up in the air, making your competitive games feel like a coin flip. But don't worry, we're here to help with our top agent picks for each role on Lotus. This list is focused on solo queue, so it's most applicable to everyone watching. But keep in mind that as the meta for Lotus evolves, some agents may rise in popularity even if they're not on the top of our list initially. So let's take a quick look at what makes Lotus so unique. Lotus is Valorant's second 3-site map, but it's nothing like Haven. The map's main feature are its 2 revolving doors, one located between A tree and A rubble, and the other between C mound and B main. The most notable thing about these revolving doors is how loud they are when they are activated, giving an immediate indication to everyone in earshot exactly where an enemy is located and that they activated the switch. The A door could be looked at as an obstacle slowing down the attacking team from reaching A, while the C door could be utilized as a fast rotation route for the attacking team in exchange for alerting the defenders to your intentions via the loud noise of the door opening. There is also a small destructible vent blocking a quick rotation route from A main to B site that spawns closed at the start of each round. Starting off each round, the attacking team is given very little space to make progress while the defending team has much more room to play up and push for initiative. It's safe to say that a ton of fighting will be happening around the A rubble and A main parts of the map. This is because if the attackers are able to take this space, they are now able to threaten A site, which is situated farther back than either of the 2 other bomb sites, along with the option to rotate to B for a mid-round plant or to make a full rotation to C through the revolving door. B site is connected to every part of the map and could be troublesome to try and take in a 5v5 scenario. Much like on Haven, the bomb site might be easy to take, but it will be hard to hold down the more enemies are left alive. The C site has a lot of differing elevations and angles enemies could be hiding, while the C mound position is one that defenders definitely have the upper hand in controlling at the start of the round. And once you're able to take this position, unlike A, there aren't many fallback options or rotation plans you can easily execute. If you're going C, make sure you have a good plan for how you're going to take the bomb site or leave a player back to hold some sort of A/mid control. Kicking off our tier list with our only S-tier duelist for Lotus is Phoenix. Phoenix's simple yet effective kit makes him an excellent pick on a map with many twists and turns. His flashes are easy to use and can catch enemies off guard in almost any position. Attacking or defending Phoenix's flashes provides cover for those longer areas of the map your team are trying to pressure. He can stop pushes or clear areas with his molly and so much more. Not to mention, on a map with 3 different ultimate orbs, a good Phoenix player could get his ultimate 3 to 4 times in a single half. All of these factors combined make him a super strong agent for the general solo queue game on Lotus. Following up in A tier, we have both Neon and Raze. These 2 agents thrive on close-range scrappy maps where the utility can really shine. Neon specifically we think has the potential to be an all-star agent on Lotus, but we were forced to lower her since she does require more team play than the other duelists. Her stuns and wall can be amazing resources when used correctly, as there are so many tight angles on this map she could easily take over the game in the right hands. Not to mention, her high gear ability allows her to beat important timings on both attack and defense, either to take a forward position on defense to surprise enemy attackers or running past traps or setups. The defense might have to set up a choke point in places like A main. Raze is in a similar boat as Neon since her utility loves to displace the enemy and force them into a bad or impossible fight. But Raze suffers a bit more since she's best utilized with other comboing abilities like Fade Seize or Breach's Stun. Lotus really favors these 2 duelists who like to control space and create choke points of high resistance, putting Neon and Raze at the top of our list for duelist. Rounding out the duelist category all in B tier are Jett, Reyna, and Yoru. Starting off with Jett, we have a hard time seeing how Jett will find a ton of value because of how much ground she's forced to cover. It's hard for Jett to create space and clear all the angles on Lotus safely since she doesn't have any displacement AoE abilities. However, Jett is one of the most versatile agents in Valorant, so we don't think picking Jett on Lotus is trolling, just that there are better options. Jett still provides an off threat which can prove super valuable on fighting the longer range angles around A and C. But is that enough to justify picking her over Phoenix, Raze, or Neon? Only time will tell. Reyna also joins Jett on B tier since Reyna is really all about fragging out. No matter the map, Reyna is only really valuable if the player piloting the character is an aim demon. She just lacks the utility to help her team on a map that requires the attacking team to fight for so much space. But Reyna in the right hands can be S tier on any map, so settling for B tier is reasonable for the queen of smurfing. Rounding out the duelist is Yoru. But for all of our Yoru mains out there, don't be too upset. The reason why Yoru is so low on our tier list is because of how hard he is to make work in a team setting. Yoru is by far the highest skill ceiling duelist, so in the right hands he can demolish the enemy team. And on Lotus, we find that he has some crazy opportunities to get in behind the enemies to open up the map from the inside out. and because of Lotus's long rotation times, he can always be in the action if you time his gate crash correctly, making those 15-second rotations instant. Because of how difficult this can be to do, however, we are forced to keep him low on the tier list for now. And before we move on to the initiators as well as the rest of the roles, we quickly want to mention that we also offer guides and coaching over on our website ProGuides.com. For just $8 a month, you get access to everything, so try it out today if you're serious about improving. The initiator class is next on our list, and kicking us off in the S tier is who else other than our robo agent KO. The reason why KO is the obvious pick for a top Lotus agent is because of what he brings to a team looking to take space fast. KO's knife is still the only ability in the game that disables the enemy from using their own abilities. And unlike Sova's dart or Fade's eye, it doesn't rely on line of sight for you to get information on an enemy's location. One knife can completely reveal an entire bomb site if thrown correctly. Lotus is a big map, so when one of the bomb sites is under heavy fire, help can be upwards of 15 seconds away. Being able to take away the enemy's abilities during this time period is borderline OP for site takes. He also combos extremely well with agents like Raze and Neon who like to move fast and get in the enemy's face. KO's flashes enable this and keeps his team safe from operator threats or render enemies in confined areas of the map helpless. This makes him our only S tier initiator for the time being. Following KO in the A tier, we have both Skye and Breach. Similar to KO, these two agents want to flash and stun enemies so their duelists have an easy time eliminating them. Breach especially, we predict, will have a spot on most meta comps in any game. In solo queue, however, Breach can be hard to extract the most value out of since you need to rely on the others to capitalize off your utility. For this reason, we moved him down to the high A tier for this tier list, even though his stun is perfect for taking control of areas like A, B, or even C main. Skye is in a similar situation, but her ultimate on these bigger maps can prove to be insane for making mid-round calls, or even for full-hitting bomb sites. If you're planning to play these agents on Lotus in the future, make sure your communication is on point, and we have no doubt you can take over the game with any amount of pressure and control that they bring to a team comp. The only initiator we have placed in B tier is Fade. Fade struggles on maps where her eye can be easily hidden from or where her prowlers can't seek out enemies easily. After the nerf to her prowler's range and because of the verticality of bomb sites like C, we think she gets outshined by the previous named agents. She is still a solid agent, which is keeping her out of the C tier, but the others just do their jobs a little bit better on Lotus. Her ultimate and C's are for sure still strong, but we think that she lacks luster on Lotus in her current state compared to our higher picks. And finally in C tier we have Sova. Sova and Fade both parallel when it comes to their information gathering abilities. Whether it's Sova's dart or Fade's eye, these abilities struggle when they can't get in line of sight of the enemy position. The only difference between Sova and Fade is Sova doesn't have two prowlers and an ultimate that takes up an entire bomb site. Yes, his drone could be useful, but its limited range will prove to be underwhelming when trying to clear vast distances, which Lotus is full of. So for now, Sova sits at the bottom of our Lotus tier list. Moving on to Sentinel agents, we have some clear top dogs on Lotus, and it's easy to see why. In S tier, we had a hard time deciding if Killjoy and Cypher could both compete for this top spot, and in the end, we decided that Killjoy will be our only S tier Sentinel on Lotus. Killjoy's ability to keep tabs on not only multiple areas of the map but multiple sites themselves can't be undervalued on a map like Lotus. With 3 bomb sites, control will be hard to keep for defenders, and we can see Killjoy has the ability to check those boxes. On attack, her turret's infinite viewing range is fantastic for covering flanks, and giving your team ample time to deal with those pesky defenders breaking your lines. The biggest difference keeping her at the top above Cypher is of course her ultimate. Because the sites are relatively small, Lockdown is excellent for both attacking and retaking spike sites. Really try to farm orbs when playing Killjoy, since every time you use your ultimate you basically win the round. We spoiled A tier a bit when speaking about Killjoy, but our only A tier Sentinel is of course Cypher. Cypher's trips are fantastic for keeping track of multiple areas of the map since they aren't limited by range. And his camera is perfect for spotting enemies crossing long angles that Lotus has a lot of. But his ultimate is a bit underwhelming, especially in a solo queue environment. Overall, Cypher is a solid pick on Lotus. Not as good as Killjoy, but still easily capable of carrying games. In the B tier we have Sage. Sage is an interesting sentinel since she doesn't really provide information or get easy kills using her utility. Unless you're grim walling up and fragging it out, it can be really hard to maximize Sage's wall's usefulness. There are some positions where her wall can secure your team an easy bomb plant or delay an enemy's retake, but we don't think that's enough to put her on the same level as Killjoy or Cypher when it comes to Lotus. She does have a nice heal and her res is always useful, so TLDR, she's B tier. And it's with a heavy heart we have come to tell you that our boy Chamber is in the trenches of D tier. Chamber's nerfs were extremely hard on him in every level of play. Whether it's a silver solo queue game or VCT champions, Chamber is having a hard time finding his footing since he lost a lot of his control over the map. And sadly, we don't think that changes any when Lotus comes to mind. His trips do a poor job of keeping eyes on anything since. Unlike KJ's turret, it doesn't see long distance and it's on a radius restraint too. And my boy's teleport just isn't far enough to get him out of danger and get him in an advantageous position. Chamber still has his Headhunter and his ultimate in his corner, but it isn't close enough to put him above even Sage on this map. Last but certainly not least, we have our controller class of agents to be listed. Controllers on Lotus were for sure the hardest role we had when it came to exact strength. Like I stated before, Lotus can be played in a variety of ways, so a composition of agents that likes to work fast might value one controller over another. But this is what I eventually decided to be the controller tier list. Starting the highest position listed for a controller, we have Father Brimstone in A tier. Even though Brimmy only has 3 smokes, we still think that the lightning speed he brings to a team with his fast executions and stim beacon makes him an extremely strong pick on Lotus. Since the map is so big, fast hits are incredibly effective, and the enemies simply won't have time to rotate. Because of that fact, Brimstone really shines. But if the enemy stalls well and he's forced to retreat, he also suffers, keeping him out of the S tier. But don't worry, the rest of his kit we feel makes up for his fault. His molly is fantastic for buying your team those valuable seconds on rotations, and his ultimate counters Killjoys perfectly. Not to mention for our die-hard Brim players out there are some fantastic molly lineups for bomb plants that can effortlessly secure rounds for your team. Following Brim in B tier is, believe it or not, Harbor. Now Harbor has been regarded as one of the weakest agents in the game ever since his release. He's even battling Yoru for most underpowered agent on debut. However, on the flip side of extreme speed, if your team is looking to play a slow methodical game, Harbor's recharging curving Viper walls are perfect for Lotus. There are many long angles where his tidal wave can be used to keep your team safe and create devastating timings the enemy can't ignore. A good Harbor can easily smoke off every threat on a bomb site with a single wall, which no other agent can do on Lotus right now. His ultimate is a bit weak, which is keeping him below Brimstone, but we think he could really come into his own on Lotus in the coming weeks. So if you're a controller, maybe pick up a few games and see if you can wash away the enemy team. Below Harbor, we have both Astra and Omen following up in the C tier for controllers. Omen's 2 rechargeable smokes are pretty good for most maps, but on Lotus your team needs to smoke wide ranges quickly in order to make safe progress. We feel Omen's smokes are a bit too slow to place and don't last long enough for your team to make progress across the map. Omen's flash also struggles to find value on Lotus since most locations you're looking to flash and fight are close range. It's hard to catch enemies off guard with near sight and capitalize on them too. Astra is pretty much in the same spot as Omen when it comes to placing down smokes and them not being wide enough for covering some areas of the map. Although Astra can use sucks and stuns to help her team clear areas of the map, the high-tiered initiators already accomplish this, so it doesn't make sense to sacrifice better smokes for more CC clearing tools. Her ultimate is also lackluster since Lotus bomb sites have ample room for the enemies to defend the bomb and don't force the enemy to really contest any hard to gain ground. Finally, our last agent is Viper falling with Chamber in D tier. The problem with Viper is the same on Lotus as it is on Haven. She is unable to be a solo controller on this map since her wall and orb just aren't enough to cover all the important angles. So if you're picking Viper, you need to sacrifice an agent pick for something like Brim or Omen, severely weakening your team, along with the fact that she is super choreographed and easy to read. So if the enemy team sees your Viper's wall coming down on that A, that tips them off that A is probably the end goal and should be more defended. I think Viper might find her way into some pro level comps to achieve certain setups or outcomes together with another controller, but for solo queue she's best left on the agent select screen. And that just about does it for our Lotus agent tier list. Lotus could quickly become the most loved or hated Valorant map in the coming weeks, so I'm excited to see what everyone's opinions are and how the games are played. We hope this video makes getting into Lotus a bit easier no matter what role you play, and we wish you luck in your upcoming ranked games. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and I'll see you all again in the next one.